Hi. I use the break between the lectures to look at your badges. And I know that there are a lot of people who works for startup. I know that there are people who had an opportunity to build a greenfield projects. I saw that there are people from the biggest Polish internet company as well from the big international companies. So I assume that if you work for the startup, you had an opportunity to choose your tools, choose your deployment tools, to choose your operating system, everything on your own. If you work for a bigger company, I imagine that you had an opportunity to redesign some legacy systems, some really old and messy code. In all of those type of project, there's one thing when you have to choose tools, when you have to decide where to go. Some of us, I imagine, did the same as I did once. I built my framework. So I bet that your framework finished as mine. It's on a repository, no one uses it anymore, no one wants to watch it, no one wants to see the code, no one look at it. So similar situation we had in Allegro a couple of times ago. It was like we had really big applications, which was built for over 15 years, and we decided to redesign it. Actually, it wasn't the first time we decided to redesign it, but I hope this one will be successful. My name is Krzysztof Debski. Chris is much easier to pronounce for English people than Krzysztof. I'm a developer, I'm an architect, and I'm a product owner of service Bootstrap that we built in Allegro. I hope that in this short lecture we will have opportunity to compare what you do in your company, what you do in your bootstraps to the thing we did. For some of you, it might be opportunity to even find some tools and find some solutions that you might use in your company. And for some of you, which are on the beginning of the work, it might be even the whole bootstrap that you might use, that you might want to start your project on. The first thing, we will start on the history of Allegro. I will tell you something about Allegro. I'm quite sure that most of you know what Allegro is, but I will tell you something from the other side. Then we will focus how we wanted to build a new word, what we decided that are our new bootstrap, and how we want to incorporate all developers into it. We are in the middle of the road, so then we will see what are we working on right now. We are see how we improving our bootstrap right now, and what are the next step. I'm quite sure that you will, after this talk, you will know slightly more than developers that will do it in just a couple of days. And the last part is lessons learned. I would like to share with you about what we learned during this project. Okay, so let's start with Allegro situation. Allegro is quite old, I would say. In this year, it's gonna be 15th anniversary of Allegro platform. Do you remember what you did 15 years ago? I remember because I was sitting in a cinema and watching Matrix, and the second, my favorite movie, Fight Club. So it was quite a long time ago. It's like this power plant. That's how the oldest part of Allegro looks like. So it's about it was about 6 million lines of code that we deal with every day. We deal it just to provide the auction platform for 15 million people day by day. We have almost 400 people in IT. I had developers here, but I don't want to use word developers because it's about all the people that build Allegro. It's about IT guys from infrastructure, it's about operators, it's about DBAs, it's about developers itself, it's about Scrum Masters, because we are working in Scrum. So we all working on Allegro every day just to deal with the code that is 15 years old. Just to imagine how is to work with that type of code is, do you wrote any tests 15 years ago? Do you even thought about writing any tests 15 years ago? No one did. So we have a lot of code written in PHP, in ANSI that we need to deal with. So we thought that there is something that needs to be done with it. So we've been looking for some new hope. We asked some really clever guys from IT. We asked Robert Cecil Martin. Maybe you know them. Maybe you know him as Uncle Bob, the author of a Clean Code book. We asked him to come to our company and make training for us. And after this, we learned, okay, we know how to write clean code. We know that we should write short functions. We know that we should write tests. It's not as bad as we thought. But, well, actually, it wasn't enough. So we looked around and thought, well, maybe we should do something else. So we thought, well, maybe we should build SOA. Well, it's quite old term, but maybe. So we went to our business people and told them, well, we'll build SOA for you. And it was like on this image. Okay, thank you, it's nice. It doesn't mean that I will have my features faster. No. Does it mean that it will be better? Well, maybe in a couple of years, but not now. So we decided to explain them what SOA is. So we explained. And then we realized that it's not as easy as we thought. Because it's the term service-oriented ambiguity for purpose, because we didn't know what SOA means. For some of us, it was like exposing web services and exposing API from application. For some of us, it was like incorporating ESB into applications. For some of us, it was let's put queues and let's put asynchronous communication and it's gonna be SOA. So we didn't know what SOA stands for. So we decided that we should go somewhere other way. So we asked Eric Evans, the author of Domain-Driven Design book and Domain-Driven Design, to come to us and explain us how to divide application into multiple contexts, into multiple independently developed pieces. So here comes the great buzzword. When we thought about this, we thought, well, let's build services. But from 2 months now, it's not services anymore. It's called microservices. They put all the best from SOA and called it microservices. I can understand it because it's better because SOA is old and not fashioned anymore. So how to start with microservices? First of all, you have to have business need. I know that it's easier to build service to transform HTML to PDF, or to build service to send mail, or to any other technical service. But to be honest, it's hard to sell it. No one would buy it. So all we need is to have business need and to have service owner. If we have service owner, we can tell them, well, you have your need, so let's build bounded context around it, and we'll have our first service. But it's not as easy just to draw it, but we need to divide application into independent modules, into independent services. With this, we can develop it with different teams. We can develop it in different languages. We can develop it anyway. So if we want to develop it in that way, we need to have API. And the API is the only way that services can talk to each other. It can be either REST, it can be SOAP, it can be even Corba if anyone remembers Corba. So let's build this with API. If we have API as a single point of entry to the service, we can easily exchange our persistence layer. So we can use MongoDB in one service and Cassandra in another. We started with huge, I would say enormous database in Oracle. And right now, we are shifting to a lot of small databases in different languages. But it's not all. There are a lot of people that, well, I remember ESBs, we should put something between just to communicate to each other. No, we should move from this. Those services are written in-house. We can do whatever we want with them, so we can put some smart endpoints and use this connector as a dump pipe, not opposite way as with ESB. So we had our microservices, and we wanted to build the new world. So the first approach was, well, let's build services, the real brand new shiny service. It's gonna be auto-deployable, auto-healable, auto-scalable, auto-discoverable, auto. It was failure. We just failed just after we started, because we knew that we cannot build that in reasonable time. So we switched to other way. We switched to the walking skeleton way. So we decided to build small piece every time and deploy it as fast as possible, just to let our developers work on it and to let us have feedback as fast as possible. So let's start. We started with our first project. We took Gradle, we took Spring, we took Jetty server. It's obvious, it's easy, and we just deployed our first service. But well, it's just independent piece of code, but it doesn't have an API. So we decided to put an API on it. We decided to get Jersey and JAX-RS just because it's JSR compliant. And with just a couple of annotations, you can expose your REST service. But then we have our REST service, but no one knew about it actually, because well, you have to look inside just to know that there are some endpoints and to work with it. So we took another tool. We took Swagger. We add some another annotations, and we have exposed documentations. Maybe you are familiar with some with WSDL. There are some crazy guys decided to build WADL for REST. Those guys were crazy. So we decided to go with Swagger with this /apdocs. With this method of exposing our interfaces, we can use some tools like Swagger UI, which allows us to test any service just out of the box. We can also use some tools like Swagger CodeGen, which with slightly modifications allows us to generate PHP code for our old platform to integrate it with each other. Okay, but we developed our service. We even tell everyone that we have service, but no one can actually ask it. Because if you want to request API, you need to know where this API stands. So we had a really experienced guy that worked with load balancers. We had plenty of F5 big IP hardware, but we decided that it's gonna be easier to load balance if you don't have load balancer itself. So we decided to store our configuration and store information about all the available instances of service in Zookeeper with some additional library from formerly Netflix, now Apache Curator. And just after every single service start, it registers itself. It says, okay, here I am. You can ask me, you can request me, and I can give you something. On top of Zookeeper, we provided also one service, the same as any other, but it's called Discovery Service. So it provides information in via HTTP about all the services available, about all the instances available in our environment. It's also quite clever, I would say. Now it's only a little clever because it can give you instance with a proper service version or with proper availability zone, but it's gonna be much more clever. So if user asks any of service, for example, get user. So I want to get user with all the offers that he put into the auction system. So first of all, user service asked Zookeeper and said, "Oh, give me the next available next available instance of offer service." When I get it, I can ask offer, get offer, combine them all together into the user object, and send them to the client. But when we have this, we can ask, but sometimes, as I mentioned, there are multiple versions of the same application, of the same service available in the same environment. So we decided that we should put versioning into our API. There are multiple possibilities how to put version support to your application. You could change name of application. That's the easiest way. You can change a URL of application. You can change port of application. You can change anything. You can add parameter to URL of your application. But we wanted to do it in the proper way. So we use the thing that is for the years in HTTP. We used accept header because, well, when we request, for example, user here, we request user, not application JSON. We request application. We request Allegro user, but in application JSON version 2. So with this, we can have our class which expose user in version 1, because all of the exposed methods are exposed in version 1, but one of them, which is find all users, exposed users in version 2. We can have simultaneously two versions of the same method, for example, to provide backward compatibility. Okay, so we have our services, and it would be nice to provide easy way to configure your application. There are, again, multiple ways how to do it. You can put all your configuration in your code. That's, again, the easiest way how to do it. But we decided to give our developers possibility to choose. The first thing, which is mostly supported, is to configure application via Zookeeper, because it's, well, most obvious, and it works for all instances, and it works out of the box in our environment. But we also provide our developers possibility to override some properties with environment file properties. So if you put into your application environment/prod.properties, you can override some properties for production environment. It is mainly used for local environment, because we don't want to have Zookeeper on every developer machine, because it's not necessary. So we provide them possibility to use project properties file. And it can be also override with command line options, because it's easy for our IT guys, so they can override anything. So we built the first version of the Bootstrap, and it became slow. It became slow as hell, to be honest. On my computer, to run the easy service, it took me about 60 seconds just to start it. I don't say about getting some dependencies, etc., but about starting service. So we decided that we should shift our way to work. We moved from external Jetty to embedded Jetty. So right now, application has all the necessary dependencies inside. And to be honest, when my colleague did it, he said, well, Jetty is kind of old school. Let's move to Undertow. And after another 3 or 4 hours, we had embedded Undertow. The funny thing is that I wrote a blog post on our internal space when I said, oh yeah, let's go to embedded Jetty, and it's not embedded Jetty anymore. So it was like, well, we should do something with this. But it's not only about lowering startup time. It's also about lowering deployment time. Because when we have external Jetty, we used Cargo as a deployment tool. And we just deployed packages to running Jetty instances. And right now, we can build the whole application into the zip file. We can put it into the system. We can just extract it, run, and that's all. All we have is to have on machine Java and some other tools, but some system-provided tools. What is really important also, we can use immutable images. Probably you heard a lot about immutable images, but that's what we want to do. We want to have just image with preset Java, logger, etc. Spawn machine, deploy application, and that's all. No Puppet, no Chef, nothing like this. So, I have one question. Do you write tests? How many of you test your tests? Okay, so we asked our developers to test our tests sometimes, and we decided that it would be nice to incorporate into the Bootstrap PyTest. If you are familiar with mutation test, it's just mutation test. If not, it tests whether your code coverage of your code is accurate, because it changes your code, then run tests, and check whether the test will fail. Well, usually the result of the PyTest doesn't look like this. I picked the one that has the best test just to show you how it works. For example, if you remove counter decrement from the function, that's the and only call in the function decrease, then the test, which you expect that this function will decrement counter, will fail. So it's quite good test. But we can test anything, and code coverage will be still high. We also decided that a part of unit test, sometimes it's nice to provide tests from end to end. It's nice to run your application on your environment, request via HTTP, and so that actually something has been written in a database. So we provide our developers possibilities to test without mocks, because it's better to check whether it is saved without mocks on the real database. But it can be run from IDE. So if you install on your desktop all the tools that are necessary to run tests, you can just start and check all the things that your customers will see. Okay, so we provide them tools. We provide them to us tools to deployment, to testing, but it would be also nice to have tools to monitoring. There are a lot of nice things to monitor your application. The one is Logstash and Kibana. My colleague will tell you much more about this tomorrow, and I encourage you to go to his talk, because it's really nice. And we provide out-of-the-box integration with Logstash. All you need to do in your, if you use Bootstrap, is to add 2 lines to configure your Logstash integration. It's all because on the generic image of this immutable image on the server, we already have pre-installed and pre-configured nxlog, which is proxy to Logstash. So all you need is to send via UDP your logs to your local machine to nxlog, which is listed there. It's also nice to have integration with Graphite to have all the metrics available for you. Again, integration with this, if you use this part is from the local project properties file, it just add 5 lines, and you can see automatically added in the proper way, in the proper place, all your metrics for all your instances separately, and you can just browse to them. Out of the box, you have metrics from the HTTP server, which are those ones that are shown. Because it's from the Discover service, you cannot see any other metrics, because Actually, I haven't configured them, so there's no other. But you can use CodeHail, and you can add your own custom-made metrics, and they will be shown here right now. So we built it, and you know what? We finished with Monolith. We escaped from Monolith, from Allegro, and we built one big bootstrap monolith. And it was not really nice, because you can only use it if you use it as a whole piece of code. If you want just parts and put your own application, you cannot. All or nothing. So we decided to split it. It was again the big change in Bootstrap, and we decided to put all the features as a separate projects. As actually currently it is a multi-module project. So right now you can see that it's also a multi-module project built on Bootstrap available, and it can be built. But a part of separate modules that you can build your application from these modules, we also provide profiles. Here you can see profile is Jersey Spring. That's the only profile. If you're familiar with parent POM model of building applications, it's like parent POM. It just combines all tools that we want to use together into one, and all that you need to do in your application, a part of including some Gradle scripts, a lot of Gradle scripts, is to include dependency from profile Jersey Spring in the Bootstrap. Okay, so that's the whole thing that we did till today. But we are still working on new things that we wanted to implement. First of all is we wanted to have out-of-the-box authentication. Right now, a lot of people need to write on their own some type of authentication. I would show you at the almost last slide, I would show you the silliest way of building authentication. So we want to provide, based on OAuth 2, authentication on the three different layers. The first one is authentication between services, because we would like to know that user service is allowed to call author service. We want to have also authentication on the client-based tokens. So we want to know that client Krzysztof Debski can ask about his auctions in the author service. We also want to authenticate in some other way to administration tools our employees. So we will know that employee Krzysztof Debski ask about user Krzysztof Debski or his offers via service user. So it's slightly complicated, but I hope it will work, because we are working on it right now. There are one small method in REST that no one knows, maybe not no one, but almost no one knows how to implement. So there is a patch method which provides us some 4 sub-methods which you can implement inside, but it's not like out-of-the-box support with Jersey. So you have to use, we use FG JSON patch, but still you have to write some code inside. So right now we are evaluating it. We are checking how to implement it into Bootstrap and how to help our colleagues to use it. I showed you this slide a couple of minutes ago. As you see, Swagger duplicate the annotations of Jersey. So we see path users and beneath API value users. Then we see AP operation, okay, value get all users. Oh, it should be method also, get. And we see beneath get, and we see that this method returns user collection response. So we see almost everything which is already in code, we see also in Swagger. So we want to simplify it. We don't want to duplicate our code and duplicate annotations, because right now it might be much more annotations than code itself. So we want to use Jersey, for example, and just like there's Jersey project for table ADL, prepare Swagger annotations based on Jersey, Swagger file based on Jersey annotations. And that's the most important thing for me. We want to support Docker. Currently, we have a lot of discussion about this, how to deploy applications in the proper way. And the best way I see right now is Docker. But, well, you know, Docker is not production ready, etc., so we need to evaluate it. And I can tell you on Thursday, we have kickoff meeting of the project that we will try to implement Docker support into Bootstrap. So I hope on the next presentation I will show you that it deploys like this. Okay, so let's move to the last part of this presentation, our failures and what's in it for you, what we learned, and what you can learn from our failures. The first thing, it's obvious, but not for everyone. Use the latest tool. We are using Gradle, not Maven. We are using Gradle. And till the most recent version, 1.12, there was some bug, which with parent POMs, which is just POM without jar package, check whether the jar package exists. So when we have dependency to multiple project with parent POMs, we ask multiple times for jars which didn't exist. So every single request of non-existent jar to our Nexus instance took from 5 to 40 seconds. So just upgrading Gradle allow us to save a lot of developer time. And one silly thing is that on the continuous integration environment, we use Gradle wrapper just to download the most recent Gradle package. And we didn't talk to our colleagues from continuous integration team, and they removed downloaded Gradle wrapper every time we built on Bamboo our application. So every time we run plan on Bamboo, we download it from gradle.org, the newest version of Gradle. So right now we don't do it again, but it was like, well, check what your application actually do. I mentioned Jetty, I mentioned Undertow, I mentioned Jersey, Swagger, etc. But we are not tightly connected to any of these technologies. The change in the Bootstrap is the only constant. But what we want to provide and what we want to serve our developers is that API will never change, or will change, but there's gonna be some backward compatibility. So we already changed HTTP server twice. We want to change service AP provider. We decided to go with Spring, but maybe we have some POC with Juice. We switched from deployment tools which are our own to Docker. So everything beneath the hood is changing. I bet that you write tests. That's the best test I saw in one of our services. I hope that you don't write that type of test, but this is test of the class that I showed you and have just 2 static fields and constructor. What you can test in that type of class? You can test whether it has static fields and constructor. But why the hell would you like to do that? There are other tools to do this. But if you use tools, you need to be aware that tools also lie. We use SonarQube to test code quality of our code. And with this old application, we configured, let's imagine that there are default PHP metrics. And we have file, which is from the beginning of the Allegro with us. It is rewritten, it's been rewritten for over 15 years. It is 4,500 C logs. And how many violations are there? 4, at least according to Sonar. I can bet that there are thousands of violations. I saw this code. We are discussing all the time that we want to rewrite it. It's not the best part. I would say it's one of the worst part of the application. And as I mentioned, REST is easy, but it's not really obvious. I think, can you imagine what this XYZ in first example stands for? It's the authorization token. It's the good piece of good place to put authorization token. And this one is the magic number. Guys from BI, because it's API for BI, well, it's kind of obvious. Why do we have API, separate API for BI? But they know that there is 2 magic numbers, 1 and 2. First, they need to query for 1, then for 2, but no one knows what's inside. They just parse it and just try to investigate what's inside. The second example looks really good, because it looks like we have set of recommendations. From this set, we take item number 1, and then we return items. But the number 1 doesn't stand for recommendation set. It stands for user ID. It's also not the best part. And also, you shouldn't put in parameters things that you can put into HTTP headers. Output SE-JSON, it's just accept. And the most important lesson that we learned from this is to get all the best parts from open source, to contribute to open source, and to involve as many developers from other teams, from other companies, from everywhere into your project. This project has been started by 2 guys. Łukasz Drumiński is our external contributor from Talk, and Mateusz Gajewski is our solution architect from Allegro group. And they started it, but right now we wanted everyone in Allegro to be able, and we encourage them to contribute to Bootstrap. Okay, that's all for me. Now it's time for you.
Any questions? Okay, if not, thank you very much for your lecture.
Okay.
Big applause again.
There is one I see.
Okay. But just small
Thank you.
one.
Hi there. So you said that you keep your all available instances in a Zookeeper, right?
Yep.
And there you ask for a service and you get an instance ID, and based on that you made a call. So have you compared that to traditional load balancing? I mean, which performs better?
Yeah, we compared it. And for me, the best way to load balance is not to have load balancer.
Okay.
In-house.
So this worked well for you, right?
Yeah, this worked really well for us.
Okay. What about then the single point of failure? Since you have like one place, one repository where you query for the instances.
We have Zookeeper cluster, which is multiple Zookeepers. So there is no such thing as a single point of failure. There might be, but well, it might be. It's hard because the quora must be below some level. It doesn't happen right now.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, Krzysztof. You said that you use Zookeeper, and I assume you've got like multiple servers to handle one service, or
Exactly.
yeah. Do you have a single client for your API, or perhaps in every bit of code and every bit of language you use different clients? I mean, perhaps I asked this question because I know the history about you working in Onet, and that's
Okay. If you ask whether we are writing separate clients for separate services, do I understand you correctly?
yeah.
So, well, We use Swagger, so we can generate Swagger from Swagger. We can generate objects to call every single instance, and of course, beneath it is the logic that it's single for all the services.
Okay, but in essence, if you generate it, is it deployed as a single instance, or perhaps it's I don't know, a jar or a module that's available globally, or perhaps it's multiple instances, so you might run into problems right there.
I don't get the problem. If you're asking whether there's one single instance of client, or whether there's one single instance of service. There is no one single instance of service, and clients, for us, clients are, for example, an old platform which have multiple instances. There is no such thing as single instance of client.
Okay.
Just one more Zookeeper specific question.
I'm not specialist of Zookeeper, but okay.
Do you deploy a Zookeeper cluster across multiple data center, or just deploy several clusters and synchronize between them?
That's the great question. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. So
It's the question. I'm quite sure there is a guy who installed it on this in this room. I can point you to him after.